Yeah, thank you very much. Robert put the word radical into that title. The only radical thing about this presentation is presenting to a bunch of urban designers without slides, which is the most radical thing all day, I think. So I just wanted to say four things, really, about high streets. And I want to start with the worst high street we've ever worked in. And I checked beforehand, there's no one here from Liverpool. We were appointed to do a master plan for Garston in South Liverpool, which is actually a really nice place, Garston. And in the middle of Garston, there's a street called St Mary's Road. And it's been bypassed by a very small bypass. It takes all the traffic out of St Mary's Road except for the buses. And literally walk down St Mary's Road and 80% of the shops are empty. And one had actually collapsed. It was just a pile of rubble. And what's weird about that is that within a few minutes walk of St Mary's Road is the happening part of sort of liberal, sort of creative Liverpool, and it's right next to this high street, which is in complete collapse. And you walk down this street, and we got there at about, it was in the winter, and it was about 4:30 in the afternoon. It was getting dark, and as you walk down the street, there was a single shop with a light glowing in the window, which is bright pink. And this shop was the Liverpool Fairy Cake Company. And it had just opened, and we went into it, and there was a group of 6 women in there, all with incredibly strong accents, who'd set up this company, and 80% of their business is online. And they were just using the shop as the base from which to do business. And it seemed to me that was a really interesting example of the internet saving the high street rather than killing it, because they could never have survived and traded on that street had they been serving off the footfall, which is essentially non-existent on that street. So our strategy for St Mary's Road was to set up what we called the Garston Space Agency, which sounded really funny when we say it in the office, and every time I say it, no one actually gets that it's actually NASA. But anyway, the Garston Space Agency, the idea was that all the shop owners would give over their units to us for a temporary period, and we would just let it for free to people who wanted to put activity into it. And we painted the street different colours. We took the buses down a certain track, and we created much wider pavements. Did it all very cheap, and it's still not working. There's not a happy ending, I'm afraid, to that story. But nevertheless, it's an example of the challenge that we face. And we've heard a lot this afternoon, about the death of the high street. And I was really pleased about the point that it's not the death of the high street, it's the death of the clone town. Exactly right. I mean, I was going to say it's not the death of the high street, it's the death of the shopping centre, or the out-of-town shopping centre, or the retail park. Because a lot of these retailers that have gone this year were not on the high street. Toys R Us wasn't on the high street. Maplin's was on some high streets, but a lot of these people were basically big box retailers. And there's a few things that I'm not sure I entirely agree with, actually, in terms of what we've heard this morning. I mean, we've done a lot of work over the years, and I've done probably 40 high street town centre studies. And you always work with an agent, and the agent tells you that this is a very unsuccessful town, because we've looked through it, and the number of national retailers represented here is very low. And he said, but there's loads of independents. So no, they don't count. Because when we're doing the retail health checks, independents aren't, and they don't count. It's the national retailers' representation that we look for, and then we look for the requirements. So we look at which national retailers have this high street on their requirements. Very few, therefore it's a very unsuccessful centre. And actually what we've been doing for years is completely misreading what these places are. We've assumed that they are an outdoor version of a shopping centre, when actually, as many people have said this morning, they are centres of community, they are centres of a high street, they're centres of historic centres of a neighbourhood. And so we need to think about how we define these things, and we think about how we go about doing strategies for them. That's my second point. The third point, I'm chair of the Academy of Urbanism. That's one of the things I do. The Academy of Urbanism has awards every year. We give awards to places rather than people. And one of our 5 categories is the Great Street Award. We've been going for 13 years, I think it is now. So 39 streets have been shortlisted as part of the Academy's stuff. And I guess about half of those are shopping streets. Many of the streets aren't shopping streets. But very few of them are actually the big high street. I can think of Buchanan Street in Glasgow as one of the few big streets that we've shortlisted. Lots of neighbourhood streets, lots of streets in the middle of small market towns. This year was where are we? Can't read my own writing now. Argyle Street in Glasgow this year. South William Street in Dublin. and Kirkgate in Leeds, or as Southerners call it, Kirkgate, which of course completely mispronounced here. And it's what's interesting about the streets that we've done. Very few of them have succeeded because of public realm work. The public realm work we've seen this morning is lovely, but actually that's like, the public realm work is like a stage. It's the acts on the stage that's really important, not the stage. And actually the public realm work, I think, can be a bit of a distraction. What they all have is footfall. Footfall's really important, and generating footfall's really important. Many of them have footfall because they have catchment population. Catchment population is more important than anything else, having people living nearby with an easy walk of that. Catchment spend is also important, but catchment population is probably the most important. Lots of them have independent shops. Lots of them are not dominated by chains. In fact, the Academy will mark you down, I think, if you've got lots of chain stores on the street. Lots of them have what agents call F&B, food and beverage. It's a very crucial thing. Cafes and bars and so on and so forth are incredibly important on these high streets. They all seem to have a Starbucks. And that's the one chain that seems to get everywhere, or Costa or whatever. But what they do have, and again, this is a slight disagreement with some of the stuff we've heard before, is they have grain and diversity. I don't agree that you have to create 10,000 square foot units in order to get your shops in, because actually those are a particular type of chain. You want a variety and diverse range of shops to get things in. So my final point, URBED, which is my other hat, I'm a director of URBED, back in 1995 did the government's good practice guide on town centres. It was called Vital and Viable Town Centres. It was written by Nicholas Falk, who's my colleague, still very relevant to this agenda. And we said the success of every high street is based upon the 5 A's, and I'll leave you with the 5 A's. The first A is attractions. There's no point doing a high street and there's nothing to attract people to be there in the first place. You need attractions. The second is access, which is you've got to make it as easy as possible to get there. And actually parking is an interesting part of that discussion. Weak high streets do need parking, I'm afraid, even though we probably want them not to. The third one is amenity, which is the quality of the environment when you get there. That's partly landscaping, but it's also lack of litter, lack of graffiti, that type of thing. And the final one is action. Because if you can't manage your high street, you can't take action, you'll never get anything done. So I'll leave you at that. Thank you.